Yo, what up guys? Welcome back to another video in the studio as always. I know I haven't been vlogging, there's just not really much interesting going on and we're still trying to readjust to, I guess, normality. So we've been pretty busy at work and trying to deal with a bunch of stuff and had new teachers coming to the center because the company's downsizing. Obviously, they lost a lot of money in this past few months, as we all probably can assume. So anyways, we're gonna be here for a bit, but honestly, I'm kind of enjoying this. I hope you guys are as well. I like to sit down and have a chat about some things. I thought when I first started teaching that it wasn't really for me and this was kind of a temporary gig, but honestly, the longer I do this, the more I realize that like this is definitely what I'm meant for, like my purpose kind of thing is definitely educating and making people think. That's really what I aim to do. And I realize with these videos is it's a little bit of like exploring in some of the older ones and vlogs, like seeing new things. But the main purpose is to kind of expand the way you think and change it and make you more open-minded to different things. So we're gonna continue on that path today by talking about something that's very interesting. As you saw by the thumbnail is, we kind of are living a place of like ignorance, and it can be dangerous. Let's go back. We live in the most knowledgeable time in history. What I mean is we know the most we've ever known today. Every day we're learning something new. There's no more dark ages, right? When we study history after the fall of the Roman Empire, which some people debate, but we'll say around the year 500 or so. Basically, a lot of the knowledge that Rome had, like running water, bathhouses, concrete, basic things that we take for granted today that the Romans had, that was lost. So there was a period in time where we actually took steps backwards, where we actually lost a lot of information. Think about the Library of Alexandria when that burned down. There was a lot of information, stories, and events that happened that we might never know of because they were lost in that time. Today, though, everything is digitized. There's really nothing you can't learn by sitting down in front of a computer. Any human on Earth with internet access can sit down and learn about anything. There's a few things, there's some scholarly journals that you might have to pay for, but you can get the gist of most things very, very easily and for free. And I think we kind of, even in general, like think about what you use your technology for. This is for you, my students, and for you guys back in America. How much time do you spend kind of goofing around? How much time do you actually like really harness the power of that? Anyways, that's not the point to make you feel bad. But what I've realized watching, especially with this thing happening in America and watching the president speak, is I realized something very dangerous, and that's that people are becoming more ignorant, even though we have an abundance of information. People are trying to spread news, fake news, not even to support their cause, but oftentimes just to get ad revenue. Think about clickbaity titles that these companies create specifically for you to click on so they can get ad revenue. The truth doesn't matter. Their political leaning doesn't matter. Nothing really matters besides getting you to click on it. Think about tabloids and stuff. And then also when you look at, I found this like app that basically aggregates your news and it like lists, is it left leaning or right leaning? And you can just see that the titles of the different pieces, even about the same topic, are very different. Fox News and stuff will always praise Trump and say that the left is attacking him, whereas the opposite side will say basically the opposite. And it's all trying to get you to shift the way you think or to support what you already think. We live in our bubble of information. Anyways, I'm getting a bit off topic, but what I'm saying is it's become very dangerous with somebody like Trump and his supporters is that people religiously follow him. And he's not a king, he's not a god, he's not a messiah. And the words he says are not law, they're not correct just because he says them. Now, of course, most of you guys watching understand that. But what I want you to think about is also that this is the same thing on your side. I read more left-leaning topics. But that's the same thing. They're also going to have a bias that you need to be aware of. With all the information we have, it's always important to double-check things. You'll see some funny picture of a news article on 9gag, and you'll be like, oh, this must be legit. But then you find out it was photoshopped or something, All kinds of little things that come around. And it's just important for us to do that little extra step of research just to be sure you know what you're saying. It's so easy to just spread nonsense. And that's why oftentimes when people post stuff on Facebook, like no offense to my friends or family or whatever, I'll give it a read. But oftentimes if they post their opinion just for no reason, you can't just like be like, yeah, you're right, dude. Like gotta have some evidence for things. Oftentimes we just get lost in this sea of opinions and we're losing facts. So I saw this great video a few days ago from Wisecrack. I'll see if I can find it somewhere to link it. But it was like, it's from years ago when Trump first became president, but it was like called Trump versus the Truth. And there's been a few different people who have spoken about this. And it's really interesting how he does twist the truth to always benefit him. Let me say that one more time. Not the truth. He can always bend situations to benefit him. And people believe him. And that's the scary part. See, the scary part is this ignorance. The scary part is that people don't bother doing research. People just say, yeah, you're right, dude. Even though there's sometimes blatant lies or blatant fallacies. That is the scary part. And that is just something for you guys to keep in mind. Or the same thing I'd say to my students here is, yeah, the government here lets out a lot of news, but it's also important to remember that all the news in Vietnam is centralized. It's always going to be pro-Vietnam. You're not legally allowed to criticize the government here. So the things you're going to see here, you always need to take them with a grain of salt. Oftentimes, they do release the truth. There's really no reason for a country like Vietnam or a government like Vietnam to, hide a lot of things. But, there are always still going to be biases either way. And what I want you guys to take away from this while you're watching and kind of digesting is that you need to not only do your own research, but when people ask you about things, you need to remember that it's okay to say, I don't know. You see a lot of people, and maybe you guys have parents. I think my dad's kind of like that in terms of like, he always has an answer for everything. And maybe that's fine. If you happen to know the answer to everything people ask you, maybe. But it's also okay to be like, I'm not sure, let me do some research. It's something I try to introduce to my students. You guys know this, that study with me, but it's that if they ask me a question, I'll answer it. But if I'm unsure, I'll say, I don't know. And if we have the time, I might even Google it in front of them just to find the answer to that question. And I tell the students even to double check me. So if I say something, sometimes they'll Google and be like, actually, you were wrong. It's not 47 countries, it's 42 or whatever. For example, like, we're talking about the communist countries on earth, and I was like, oh, there's 5 of them. And they're like, well, what are they? So I said them, and then somebody double checked and they're like, okay, yeah, you're right. It's those little things that are very important, that not only are they double checking me, just because I'm the teacher doesn't mean I'm always right. Just because you have parents, which I guess we all do, doesn't mean they're always right. Just because you have your boss saying something, it doesn't mean he's always right. And it goes all the way up the chain, even to the president. Keep that in mind as you get older, or for those of you who already are old, just to kind of remind you that you do have a bias, and the media you're consuming has a bias, and your friends have a bias, and you gotta kind of do your own research to come to your own conclusion. Because again, we're not living in the dark ages. We don't need to think, oh, well, it must be God. No, there's always an answer to everything. You just gotta find it. Remember, we in this modern world, we live by the scientific method. Basically, we try to have a theory, a hypothesis, and we try to prove it or disprove it, right? That's the point. And then once you finish your experiments and you have a conclusion and you write it all out, you're gonna share that with your peers. And your peers will peer review it, right? That's what you do in the scientific community. Or what we did with like our history papers when I finished my final, I don't know what you want to call it. It's not a dissertation, whatever it's called. I had my paper and I had to actually defend it in front of the professors, where they would kind of try to poke holes in your thesis and in your data that you're giving to them, and that's the point. That's their job, is to be like, well, what about this? What about this? Can you prove this? But are you sure this? And stuff like that. That's important in all aspects of life. And for us, we need to constantly keep learning, constantly keep improving ourselves, especially mentally. Don't ever get stuck. When you're kids, you're used to that. You're like, okay, like people are telling me this and that, and I'm always learning. I'm always changing my opinion. I'm always learning new things, different things. But when you become an adult, don't let that stop you, especially for people who are my age, in their late 20s, maybe early 30s. As you get older, I feel like we get more and more concrete. We start like settling, is that the word? Setting, like concrete. You become harder and harder to change. So it's like a constant, it's like exercise, physics, except it's mental exercise, to keep your mind kind of fluid, because things are going to change. The things that I believe today, in the future, they might prove that they don't work. It reminds me, like when we talk about communism here in Vietnam with my students, is like, it seems to work well, but there are definitely issues. We've proven throughout history that pure communism just doesn't work. So for you to support it and say, oh, it'll work this time, is ignorant. That shows a lot of hubris in your situation. And that's the same thing with today when we see Trump saying we're doing a great job. It's like, listen, man, I don't know why people believe you, but the numbers are terrifying, and the numbers are proving completely the opposite. And as you guys get older and as you're reading stuff, don't just jump on the boat and support people, right? You need to always look at the facts. And even the opposite, let's say my video from before about universal healthcare, what if that happens? And before we just celebrate, we need to see, well, are we actually going to bankrupt the country because it's run inefficiently? See, there's a bunch of things you got to look at before you just blindly follow along. And that's the same thing, especially for my Vietnamese friends, is to always remember that we live in a country, especially here in Vietnam, where it's very top down. People tell you what it is and that's how it is. Just remember that's not always true. There's always a different side to things. There's always more information that you might not know. Don't let your teachers go and be like, oh, that's just because I said so. No. You're not the be-all, end-all teacher. You're just facilitating this information to me. Not facilitating. You're just providing me with this information, but I need to interpret it. Knowledge is weird, but take advantage of it, guys. Remember, use your phones for some useful stuff too. Spend some time on Wikipedia. It's what I like to do for fun. Just click on random articles. The app is great. There's a bunch of things you can do to constantly keep learning new things. Constantly keep improving your mind, because that's the two things. By the way, Huong and me started going to the gym. We went yesterday, so we're super sore. But physically, I'm feeling really good. And now talking about this, like mentally, I'm also trying to get there. Do not become like America is today, and keep exercising mentally and physically. And don't let this age of ignorance continue. It's up to us to change it. And it's up to you guys here in Vietnam as well to make sure you guys change it, so you don't grow up like your parents or grandparents who are very rigid in their ways of thinking, and instead improve upon that to become more liberal and open-minded. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed that one. I should go back to vlogging soon, shouldn't I? I will do that soon. Anyways, you know what to do. Like if you liked it, subscribe if you're not subscribed, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.